Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geostrategic Podcast. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the podcast. Is the Pacific on the edge of a breaking point? For the first time in months, China's Liaoning aircraft carrier has just crossed the line into the Taiwan Strait, and Taipei's military is on high alert. As Beijing asserts total sovereignty, the world is watching this narrow strip of water very closely. We're breaking down the surveillance photos you haven't seen. If you want to stay ahead of the next global crisis, hit subscribe and smash that like button to help us beat the algorithm. But we want to know what you think. This is a community for the bold. Is this a routine exercise, or are we looking at the final warning before conflict? Don't hold back. The comments are open, and we want to hear your unfiltered take. Drop your opinion below right now. Let's get the debate started.
Yeah, so to jump right in, we are bypassing the usual, high-level summaries today. The mission for this deep dive is to look at the immediate geostrategic reality of what this specific transit actually means. Because when a massive vessel like the Liaoning moves, it physically changes the dynamics of the region. So we need to unpack the signals being sent based on the latest info and why this specific stretch of water is just so volatile right now.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of this then, because the latest updates confirm the Liaoning sailed straight through the highly sensitive Taiwan Strait on Monday.
Right, the first passage by a vessel like that since late last year.
Exactly. But here's where the signaling gets really fascinating to me. Taiwan's defense ministry responded by actually releasing a surveillance image. And, you might be picturing some polished, high-definition drone footage.
Oh, absolutely not.
No, it's not. It is a grainy black and white photo. Yet, even in that low resolution, you can clearly see several fighter jets and helicopters sitting right there on the carrier's deck.
Yeah, it's very intentional.
Honestly, it makes me think about sending a read receipt on a text message. Releasing a raw, unpolished photo feels like Taipei is explicitly signaling, we see exactly what you are doing in our backyard.
Yeah, the read receipt analogy works perfectly there. Because releasing that photo is fundamentally about communication, right? It's not about photography.
Right.
By publishing that specific image, Taiwan's armed forces they're making a declarative statement about their readiness. The latest news emphasized that they maintained close and continuous surveillance throughout the entire passage.
Basically proving their defense network is awake.
Exactly. They cannot be caught sleeping. But, Taipei interprets this as part of a sustained campaign to pressure their government.
Right. And let me push you on that word pressure for a second, because I think for a lot of you listening, it's easy to wonder, how does a boat simply driving by create actual tangible pressure?
Yeah, it's a good question.
It's just a ship in the water, right? Why is that viewed as an existential threat rather than just a floating piece of metal?
Well, that is a crucial distinction we have to make. A carrier group isn't just floating passively out there. It is an active, radiating hub of military capability. When the Liaoning sails through the strait, its radar systems are actively sweeping. It is literally mapping Taiwan's electronic emissions and testing their air defense zones.
Oh, wow.
And its presence forces Taipei to actually scramble their own fighter jets in response.
So it's essentially a real-world stress test.
It's much more than a test, honestly.
Yeah.
It is a war of attrition without anyone actually firing a single shot.
Wait, how so?
Because every time Taiwan has to scramble jets to monitor these Chinese vessels, they burn through highly expensive aviation fuel.
Right.
It puts massive wear and tear on their older airframes, and, it just exhausts their pilots. Beijing has vastly more resources.
Oh, so they can just outlast them.
Exactly. By simply maintaining a persistent presence, they force Taiwan to constantly bleed its defense budget and pilot stamina just to maintain that read receipt level of surveillance.
Wow. Okay, so the physical presence is a literal financial and operational drain on Taipei. That makes complete sense.
Yeah, it's a grind.
But acknowledging the ship is only half the battle, because the real friction here, the thing that actually threatens to spark a global crisis, is about who actually owns the water beneath that ship.
Right, the legal definitions.
Yeah, the Taiwan Strait isn't just an empty stretch of ocean. Can we break down the mechanics of these conflicting claims? Because it seems central to the whole issue.
We really have to, yeah. Because the geostrategic reality here is a total clash of definitions. On one side, Beijing asserts complete, outright sovereignty over the Taiwan Strait.
Because they consider Taiwan their territory.
Exactly. They argue that the water between the mainland and the island is an internal sovereign waterway. So they claim total jurisdiction over who can and cannot be there.
And obviously, Taipei and Washington operate under a completely different legal reality.
Radically different. They completely reject Beijing's claim of sovereignty over the strait. They rely on the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, which dictates that because the strait is, I think, roughly 70 to 100 nautical miles wide.
Yeah, it's pretty wide.
Right, so there's a central corridor there that officially constitutes international waters, meaning you have two entirely incompatible definitions of the exact same geographical space.
Wait, but if U.S. Navy ships sail through this exact same strait all the time, which we know from recent updates they do,
Right.
and occasionally U.S. allies sail through as well.
Isn't Taipei being a bit, I don't know, hypocritical by sounding the alarm over a Chinese ship?
Well,
If it's international water, anyone can sail there, right?
yeah.
Why is one transit considered routine and the other treated as a red alert?
I mean, I get why it looks like a double standard on paper, but the broader context is what changes the definition entirely.
How so?
When American or Japanese ships sail through, they are conducting what's known as freedom of navigation operations.
Peace.
Exactly. The U.S. sails through to prove the water belongs to everyone. They are legally demonstrating that it is an international corridor. China, on the other hand, sails through to prove the water belongs only to them.
I see. So it's about the precedent being set. Precisely. They are demonstrating sovereign ownership. And the legal designation of that water dictates the rules of engagement. Which is why this matters so much for you and everyone else paying attention.
Right, because the rules completely change.
Completely. If a waterway is international, a foreign submarine can transit through it while submerged, no problem.
Okay.
But if a waterway is sovereign territorial water, a foreign submarine is legally required to surface and fly its flag.
Oh, wow.
So if Beijing successfully normalizes the Taiwan Strait as its own sovereign territory, they can legally dictate that foreign militaries have no right of innocent passage.
Which would effectively cut off Taiwan from its allies.
Exactly.
And we are seeing this exact clash over definitions play out with other nations right now. Because looking at the latest info from just this past Friday, China monitored a Japanese warship transiting the Taiwan Strait.
Yeah, that was a huge development.
And Beijing did not view that Japanese transit as a routine navigational exercise. They officially labeled the move a, quote, deliberate provocation.
Which just perfectly illustrates the paradox of this entire waterway. The standard for what constitutes a provocation changes entirely depending on which side of the geopolitical divide you're standing on.
Right.
To Tokyo and Washington, that Japanese warship was simply utilizing a globally recognized international corridor. To Beijing, it was a foreign military literally trespassing into domestic territory.
It really feels like a power tag where the fuse is just a disagreement over a dictionary definition.
It really does.
I mean, the definition of routine essentially doesn't exist here anymore. It's completely subjective.
And that subjectivity is what makes the environment incredibly dangerous. When there are no agreed-upon rules of the road, the likelihood of a miscalculation...
Like ships colliding.
Yeah, like two ships getting too close, or a pilot making a overly aggressive maneuver, the risk of that just skyrockets.
And to really understand how high these stakes are, we need to expand the lens away from just this one Monday transit by the Liaoning. Because the Liaoning isn't their only piece on the board, is it?
Far from it.
Yeah, the recent updates point out that the Liaoning is actually the oldest of China's 3 operating aircraft carriers. It was commissioned, over a decade ago?
Yeah.
Built on a refurbished Soviet hull.
That's correct, yeah. It uses a ski jump ramp for its aircraft, which, interestingly enough, actually limits the weight of the payload and the amount of fuel those jets can carry when they take off.
Oh, interesting. So it's a bit restricted.
Yeah, I mean, it's a capable ship, obviously, but it represents their older generation of naval technology.
Which makes the timeline of events here incredibly revealing. Because if we look at the last reported instance of a Chinese carrier in the Strait before this Monday, it was back in mid-December.
Right.
And that wasn't the Liaoning, that was the Fujian. And looking at the specs, the Fujian is China's newest and most advanced vessel.
By far.
It has a flat deck with electromagnetic catapults similar to the newest American carriers, actually allowing much heavier, fully fueled planes to launch. So in mid-December, you have the absolute newest, most advanced carrier making the journey through the Strait. And now, months later, you have the oldest carrier making the transit.
Right. And if we look just a few weeks prior to that Fujian transit, so in early December,
Okay.
this exact same older ship, the Liaoning, was busy holding extensive drills in waters close to Japan's southwest island chain.
Oh, wow. It's almost like a basketball team swapping out their star veteran for their most athletic rookie.
It's a great way to put it.
They are showing Taiwan and the U.S. that their bench is incredibly deep. Like, they don't need their best ship there 24/7 to maintain a constant threat.
Yeah, that deep bench analogy captures the operational reality perfectly. What we are looking at isn't a series of isolated stunts. It is a clear demonstration of continuous rotating naval capability.
Right.
By actively deploying both their oldest operating carrier and their most advanced new vessel in tight chronological succession, they are proving they have the logistical backbone to sustain operations indefinitely.
And they are doing it across multiple regional flashpoints, too, from Japan's southwest islands down through the Taiwan Strait.
Everywhere at once, basically.
Right. So what are the actual geostrategic implications of that kind of rotating capability? We throw that term around, but what does it mean for the people on the ground?
Well, it means China is developing the capacity to simultaneously pressure multiple neighbors and essentially overwhelm the defensive bandwidth of the region.
Oh, man.
If you can force Japan to monitor the Liaoning up in the north, while simultaneously forcing Taiwan to monitor the Fujian in the west, you split the attention and resources of the U.S. and its allies. It's a persistent infrastructure of pressure.
Which brings us right back to why everyone listening to this right now needs to care about these maneuvers. Because when you look at that grainy black and white surveillance photo of the Liaoning, you aren't just looking at a distant ship on a map.
No, not at all.
You are watching the literal real-time testing of international boundaries. We are looking at a highly pressurized environment where a single miscalculation by any of the nations involved could instantly impact the global supply chain, semiconductor manufacturing, and the broader global economy.
Yeah, and that actually leads to a critical realization about the nature of this conflict that I want to leave everyone with.
What's that?
We often focus so heavily on the military hardware, the carriers, the jets, the missiles. But here is something to really mull over.
Okay.
If Beijing successfully normalizes the constant presence of their carriers in the Strait, blurring the lines of sovereignty and raising the daily risk of a collision, the next major crisis might not be military at all.
Wait, really? What else would it be?
Well, the real question isn't just whether they will physically blockade Taiwan. It's whether the global shipping insurance market will look at this chaotic, high-risk waterway and suddenly just price out commercial vessels from entering the Strait at all.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. They could cause a quiet, catastrophic economic blockade before a single shot is ever fired, simply by making the water too legally and financially dangerous to sail through.
Wow. A blockade enforced by insurance actuaries rather than battleships. That is a truly chilling thought. Thank you so much for exploring this with us today.
Happy to be here.
We deeply appreciate you joining us for this deep dive. And to all of you listening or watching, thank you. If you want to keep exploring these crucial global shifts and understand the mechanics behind the headlines, we explicitly invite you to check out and listen to the other deep dives on our channel. Until next time, stay curious and keep your eyes on the horizon. See you in the next one.